So, first things first, Pixelot, I'm assuming many of you have not heard of us. So I'll give you the quick version of what we do and then get into some more detail on future slides here. But essentially, Pixelot does automated sports production. So if you think about a sports event being produced, you've got cameramen, you've got editors, you've got a production truck. We've essentially streamlined that workflow. And today we're producing more live sports hours than anyone else. Actually, each month we're producing about 5 times the amount of content that ESPN produces in a given year, and that's because we've taken this downstream. So the slogan you see here, making millions of small events big, we've really taken the opposite approach to that of ESPN or any major sports broadcaster. Most of them focus on the very few events that have millions of eyeballs per event, because that's where the best monetization is, both through viewership, through sponsorship, advertising, etc. Pixelot, because we've automated this entire workflow, it drastically reduces the cost. And so we're really focused on the millions of small events that also have small eyeballs, but in aggregate, those can actually be much larger. So this slide just shows you a little bit of the focus that we're taking. The far right-hand side of your screen here are the professional leagues, which over the last 50 years have become very attractive in regards to rights because live sports is in high demand. And you've got a lot of eyeballs on each event. And with decreasing the cost of production, we've really started to move to the left here. So going after the non-Power 5 colleges, into high school, which is today our largest market share, and then even into youth sports, so that parents don't have to be holding up an iPhone or an Android device through a fence on the sidelines of their kids' little league or youth basketball event, but you can actually have professional production even down to the lowest levels. So a little bit about Pixelot and our history. We've been around for about 6 years now. We're up to nearly 150 employees worldwide. There's 6,500 venues that our technology is installed at. So a venue could be a high school field, could be a multi-sport venue or an indoor facility where you've got anywhere from 1 to 8 Pixelot systems, and they're in a fixed installation environment. So once we put it on that court or field, we produce every single game, scrimmage, practice, whatever the owner or manager of that field wants to produce. As I mentioned, we're producing very large volume now, over 90,000 live hours of sports events, so approximately 50,000 games per month we're producing. With each sport, we have a unique algorithm to be able to track the action, whether it be tracking the people or the ball, and usually in most cases a combination of the two. There's unique algorithms that we've built for 14 different sport types, essentially everything on a rectangular field, and then most recently we've added both baseball and softball. So this shows you the growth that Pixelot has been experiencing. Just 3 years ago, we thought we were doing a lot by producing 700 hours of content a month. That's in January 2017. And then you'll see up to most recently, January a couple months ago, in the peak of basketball season, we did 117,000 hours of live sports production. Here are some of the partners that we've worked with. So Pixelot does not own the rights. We really partner with rights holders or venue owners to be able to help them produce the content that's on their field and courts. So some of the significant ones that I'll speak to here: NFHS Network, that's our largest partner in the US. NFHS stands for National Federation of High Schools. There's approximately 22,000 member high schools. In total in the US, there's about 26,000, so majority of the high schools are part of NFHS network. We're the provider of all the production to NFHS network. So if you watch a game, it's high likelihood that it's our production on there. So they've deployed our units to about 4,500 high schools so far. About 3,000 of those came just within the last 12 months. So we're ramping up pretty quickly. We're installing about 250 units every month right now in high schools across the United States. At the youth level, we've also worked with Flow Sports. They had the rights to the Junior NBA Championships. We worked with them to produce all of the qualifying events across the country, which took place in about 12 multi-sport venues, different cities every month across the U.S. last year. Hockey TV is a significant partner of ours in Canada and the U.S., where we have systems in about 160 hockey venues, where we're producing everything from junior level hockey up through semi-professional and minor league hockey. In fact, the entire AHL, American Hockey League, has a system in each one of their venues. And then below, you see some of the individual clubs that are using us from a coaching perspective, and then also some significant colleges that we're working with as well, Penn State University, University of Virginia, etc. So this is going to be our first poll question. The video may not come through so clear. It might be a little pixelated because of the internet connection here. But as you watch this game, and it's only about a 30-second clip, I want you to think about how many people were involved in producing this short clip that you're going to see. So from cameramen to production crew to scoreboards and graphics like you see on the bottom. So the poll now I'll put up on the screen. How many people were involved in this production? Was there 0 people, 4 people, 15 people, or 40 people? And I'll leave this open for a couple minutes for the whole group to answer this poll question. And then as you're going, I want to remind you that if you have specific questions about anything that I'm covering or something specific to your venue, please write your question in on the right-hand side of the screen there under the questions section towards the bottom. All right, so we've got just about everybody that's answered now. So I'm going to close the poll and share the results here. So we had 54% of the audience guessed that no people were involved, 15% said 4, 8%, 15, 23%, 40. So this was in fact an event that was produced by Pixelot. It was at the NBA Summer League. We were hired by ESPN to come in and produce about 40 Summer League games over a 10-day period. This is a 100% automated production. So I think the video, maybe you could understand how we're doing. So I won't go into that too much. But the scoreboard and graphic on the bottom is actually being produced automatically also. We don't have anybody entering the score. We have an OCR camera, which is only about a $400 camera that points at the Jumbotron in the venue. And it's taking the data that it's seeing on the Jumbotron, turning it into data that will fit into our graphics. So it's pulling everything from the score, time, and then also shot clock. And then the logos and ESPN graphic is all built into our CMS system before the game starts. So a little bit about how our solution works, so you can start to imagine what this might look like at your venue. The cameras, which we have either a 2-camera or a 4-camera system, are installed at mid-court or on a baseball or softball field behind home plate. Those cameras are capturing a panorama of the field and then sending that video feed into our video processing unit, which is essentially a regular HP computer tower. If you think of your desktop computer, that's within the venue and connected to the cameras through an Ethernet cable. We're optimizing the video on an adaptive bit rate. So as you can imagine, in most of the high schools, we don't have optimal internet bandwidth. So as long as we have 2 megabits per second of upload bandwidth, we're able to live stream. Even if the internet goes down completely, we're still going to capture the content. It's just the stream will be slightly delayed. And then in the cloud, we're enriching the production, as I mentioned, adding graphics, scoreboard, integrating sponsorship, etc. That's all being done through our CMS system, and that's the back-end management and analytics. So each partner of ours has access to this platform and can control some of the enrichment activity through that. And then we've built an OTT distribution that I'll talk about later, where essentially we have a white label OTT so that you can offer live streaming, video on demand, and some different subscription packages as well. So this shows you a little bit of how the cameras are working. So the top, this is a 4-camera system. You can see each camera is capturing a quadrant of the field. And then what it's doing in the video processing unit is stitching those 4 cameras together automatically. And then it's creating a broadcast view, which is what you were seeing on the bottom, of where the action is. So tracking the ball and the players to determine where the focus is going to be for the viewer. Because as you can imagine, on a soccer field, if the viewer was just seeing the panorama, everybody would look like small dots. It'd be hard to get much production value. And in the video you're seeing now is behind the scenes what our algorithm is doing during the entire state of play. So it's identifying throughout the flow of the game who's in action, who's out of action. So the people you're seeing in X's, it's determining are out of action. The people in squares, and then that larger pink box is where the broadcast view is going to be. So this next video will show you how that's working from the panorama. So we're always capturing that entire court through the stitched video, and then the red box is what the broadcast view is, which it's transitioned to now. We do have one question, which is, are we using Azure or AWS? We're using AWS. Adrian, thanks for that question. If others have them, please make sure to type them in here. So the additional thing that we've just started to launch, which is really the next level of this, and I think will be very valuable for youth sports, especially where a lot of times coaches, parents, players want to get highlights that they can use for recruiting film, social media, marketing, etc. And then even at the college level and pro level, the media department wants to be able to get out quick highlights. And so as you can see on this left video, we're now using optical recognition to track the uniform numbers of every player throughout the state of play. So there are going to be times when they turn their back and we can't see them, but we've built the algorithm to be able to continue to follow that player once we see it. Nobody has to upload a roster. We're just doing it based off the uniform number. So the end result is that at the end of the game, typically within about 1 hour, you can have personal highlight clips of each player. So what you're seeing now is number 17. We're tracking the points that he scored in the upper right and cutting 4 seconds before each basket, 4 seconds after each basket, and creating a personal highlight 100% automatically. So an additional thing that we're doing are what we call team highlights or condensed games. And so in basketball, it's different for each sport what a condensed game means or is. For basketball, it's just pulling every basket scored and then pulling that together in a condensed game. The value here is that if viewers want to see just the highlights and not watch a 2-hour stream of a game, they can see it in usually a 8 to 12 minute version, all the baskets. The other thing is that if they want to cut certain plays in the media department or for social media, you can cut from this 12-minute version instead of having to go into a 2-hour game and fast forward through and find those action moments that you want to be able to use for different purposes. This shows you what the camera heads look like. So the rectangular one is what we call the S2. It's our 2-camera system. So instead of splitting the field or court into quadrants, it's splitting it in half. So each camera is focused on half court. And this is a cheaper solution, costs less, but still very high video quality. It's producing in 720p, 25 and 30 frames per second. And then the 4-camera solution, which is called our S1, that has the quadrants that you saw earlier on the soccer field. We typically recommend this 4-camera system for outdoor venues just because you've got a bigger field of play, so it's helpful to have more cameras. But both have pretty similar video quality. And with either of these systems, you can do replays. It's going to capture the automatic highlights. You can do remote commentating. You can add graphics in, and then sponsorship integration as well. We also have a system that's probably not very relative to the indoor facilities on the call here, but we do have what we call Pixelot Prime, which is a very similar head to the bottom right, but it's in 1080p and 60 frames per second, just a little higher picture quality, which is actually what was used at the NBA Summer League video that you saw earlier. So installation is typically a question that we get often in regards to cost and how difficult it is. Installation, we've built a guide to make it very user-friendly and give our partners the ability to actually install on their own. I'd say that the hardest thing is typically getting electricity or the PoE to the location that we want, which on an outdoor field is usually above the press box or on a light pole. In an indoor venue, it's usually on the wall or on one of the pillars. But once you get the power and internet to the right location, installation is very quick and easy. Should only take 1 to 2 hours from that point to be able to install. We send our partner a guide, and then we support remotely through video chat to be able to help them do this. We also do offer installation services. If somebody doesn't want to take this on their own, Pixelot can do it, or we have about 200 partners that are installing most of the high school systems across the country that we can refer out to different people. So just to spend a few minutes on the OTT solution, essentially what we've made available is the opportunity for each of our partners to monetize this content without having to invest heavily in an entire additional infrastructure for their facility. And so what we do is we've built this infrastructure that can work for any one of our partners. What we call it white label, because we can customize to make it fit your venue. So you would get a website, you'd get an Android and iOS mobile app that's specific to your venue with your logo and colors, and you'd be able to customize certain pieces of it in terms of what you want the splash screen to look at, what logos you want on there, what colors you want to use, and then what subscription packages, whether you want a event pass for a weekend, you want a monthly pass, you want pay-per-view just for one event, if you want to charge live versus VOD, you have a lot of flexibility in regards to what you can do with the OTT. And this is really an activation vehicle for us. So we charge just our cost here. So pretty minimal. It's a $2,500 upfront fee to build the platform for you, and then $20 per month to be able to get the analytics and some of the controls that you would need to make changes on the OTT. We got a couple other questions, so I'm going to go to the questions here. So one question was, does NFHS network use our OTT solution? They don't use our OTT. They've built their own internal OTT because of the size and scale that they have. But we do have a handful of other partners that are using our OTT. So for example, Skyline Communications, which has several systems in North Carolina, is Basketball City in New York is using our OTT. Profile Sports in Arizona is using our OTT, and then we've got a handful of others in the pipeline that we're developing. This is a fairly new product to offer the OTT solution to our partners. There was another question from Duncan that asked, do you have any dome installations? Does motion of cameras mess up the video? So yes, we've installed in domes. We can be very far or pretty close to the court. Actually, being further away from the court or field is our preference. And motion of the cameras doesn't necessarily mess it up. If, during the game when it's not being played, like during halftime, if there's cheerleaders or different things going on the court, it sometimes will get confused. So, it's not sure what to track. But during the state of play, if there's motion outside of the court, it doesn't confuse the system at all. What we do is we calibrate the system to just pay attention to what's on that court. So we set the corners and outline of the court, and our camera is only going to pay attention to what's between those lines. So as you can imagine with multi-sport venues, a lot of times you have court by court by court. When we have a system calibrated to one court, it's not going to be getting confused by what's happening on the court next to it. Duncan, I hope that answers your question. If you have a follow-up, please enter anything else additional here. There was another question, is the camera attached to the dome which moves versus a wall or pole that's fixed? It would have to be attached to something that's fixed in the venue. So if you have a bubble, for example, that goes up and down during the winter and summer, it would have to be on something that's not going to go up and down. The cameras don't actually move. So the 4 cameras, for example, are just fixed on their quadrant of the court. It's looking like it's moving because we're stitching those 4 cameras together and then tracking the action from that panorama. But the actual cameras are not moving at all. So now I want to get into some of the monetization models, and later I'll go over a couple models that different partner of ours have used. So one model is, and a lot of times a partner will use 2 or 3 of these. It's not usually one for each partner. So sponsorship is definitely a big piece. One, it increases sponsorship for in-venue advertising because now there's more eyeballs on it. So you can imagine a banner on the bleachers, you're normally only going to get viewership of who's in the venue of that banner. Now, if you've got video, that sponsor is going to get additional eyeballs and activation. Also, we can do lower thirds within the broadcast. So a banner ad below the scoreboard, for example. We can have automated pre-roll and mid-roll. So before a game starts, you could schedule in a 30-second ad of one of your sponsors to play before the game starts, or at halftime when the system detects there's downtime. Subscription to the upper right is another one that is used by a lot of our partners. So this is using the OTT to be able to charge subscription. Pay-per-view is tied to that to be able to buy one event or buy the highlight packages, for example. Betting is on here because some of our partners use it. Obviously, betting is not going to be relevant to anybody that's on this call. And then coaching, application, and recruiting revenue. So what some of our partners have done is we have a coaching app where you can set different practice plays. You can use a iPhone or an iWatch to tag plays. So as you're watching practice, you can say, Jimmy, good layup with the left hand, and it's going to put a tag into the video so that after practice, all those moments that you've hit tag on will come into a highlight reel so that you can go into the locker room and be able to show the team those different instances that you tagged. So I think there is an opportunity to charge a higher rental fee for courts for training purposes and games when coaches can use some of the content. We also can take the content, the panorama, and give partners the ability to upload that into any breakdown software. We also have our own breakdown service through VidSwap, a company we recently bought, so that you can get advanced analytics and video breakdown as well, 100% automatically, because our videos can go automatically into VidSwap the next day, usually 8 hours after, 4 to 8 hours after you get that entire breakdown. So this just talks about some of the different values that we believe video can bring to indoor facilities and multi-sport venues. The first is differentiation, that I know a lot of you want to drive events, either your own events where you want to drive more teams to your events, or bringing event operators into your venue to run events and charging them a rental and then monetizing the gate, parking, cafe or restaurant revenue. And we believe, and our partners have seen, that by adding video, it's really a differentiation to bring more people and events to your facility. The second is marketing, that by having all these automatic highlights and capturing all of the content in your venue, you're now going to have a lot more content to be able to put on social media, on your website, so that more people see and hear about your venue. Sponsorship we talked about. I think video really expands sponsorship in a big way, whether you have some sponsorship now and the ability to upsell, or give you a whole new type of partner that you can go and sell advertising to. I think it opens up the doors to not just being the local auto body or car dealership or restaurant, but people that want to reach a wider customer base, not just the demographic that's coming through your doors. On-site video in the cafe, a lot of our partners will take the live stream and put it on big screen TVs in their cafe, so that it starts to develop behavior of before and after games, people spending more time in your cafe, buying beer, buying soda, buying food, because now they're watching their competition or watching their game on the big screen there. And then subscription-based packages, as we talked about, I think that's probably the primary and largest revenue generator. And then, as we talked about, the additional asset to teams and coaches. In my previous role, I worked for Steel Sports, which owned and operated facilities. We owned a facility called Baseball Heaven on Long Island. And, our typical revenue was really in 3 buckets. It was the field rentals, gate, and cafe or restaurant. And video, I think, is really a 4th bucket that can compete with those other 3 buckets and add a lot of profitability to your venue. So I want to launch another poll question here to get the feedback from the group here, which is getting your insight on which of these items I just went over in regards to the value of video that you think can help your facility. So I'll take about 30 seconds here to keep this open and let people share some of their thoughts. All right, we've got most of the folks that have put their vote in. I'll leave it open for about 10 more seconds here to get any last ones in. All right, so pretty good division across the board here. So 10% the differentiation to drive more events, 10% sponsorship, largest here subscription, 20% additional value to court rentals, 10% increased foot traffic in the cafe. So just a couple quick use cases. Basketball City is a 7-court indoor basketball facility in Manhattan. that's had our units. Actually, they were our first MSV partner. They've had our units for about 4 years. So you see here just a little bit of how they're using it. Subscription has been a small piece. We're now launching the OTT to hopefully increase that, but they've really used it as a value add around their league and events and a way to tie their sponsors in a bigger way. ESPN Wide World of Sports has a slightly different model. So they have about 20 of our systems now across different courts. You know, they obviously have a lot of different sports they offer there. They're doing two things. One is renting the production services out. So when third-party operators come in, they can pay to get production services, and then they can monetize it on their own. So for example, when the Pop Warner Super Bowl comes in, they pay for the production services and then they monetize it through their own audience. Hockey TV, we recently launched something called the Community Network, where we've got about 40 ice rinks now under the Community Network, where parents, community members can buy a $19 a month subscription to be able to watch any Community Network hockey game across the US and Canada. They also do services at some of the higher leagues like the AHL, but the one that's more relevant to this group, I think, is the Community Network that we just launched. So we're ending just about right on time here. It's 12:34 Pacific, so we're a couple minutes past. I will stay on for a couple more minutes if people have specific questions that they want to ask. Also, I think you'll have my email from the follow-up that comes on the email with a couple survey questions about this webinar. So if you have specific questions or want to talk to one of our team members about how this might work in your venue, please reach out. We'd love to talk to you. And then once again, want to thank US Indoor for our partnership together and look forward to hopefully seeing some of you at their convention and other US Indoor activities. Thanks so much for your time today.